Welcome to the good old days, our Raynham show focusing on the history of Raynham. I'm Pat Riley, and our host is retired selectman Don McKinnon. Welcome back, Don.
Or afternoon, Pat.
Yes.
And I think we're going to today go over, probably finish up, we could, the name of those who received Albert Porter, and if we do, we can go over to town report.
Absolutely. And just to recap, because we did talk about this on an earlier show, Don, the Albert Porter Award was established to honor former and longtime selectman Al Porter.
Al Porter started off with school committee. He went on Department of Welfare, they called it at one time. He was the selectman, Board of Health. In those days, it is now the selectman of the Board of Health, but in those days there were two separate elections. And every once in a while, some guy would win the Board of Health. He'd sit out there waiting for something on health, you know. But now it's the same board. But Albert did them both.
And he served over, I think, cumulatively over 50 years? Or
He was probably over 50, as is Barbara Sleazer, of course. You know, in other words, Albert, with school and department and with Board of Selectmen, was probably over 50 years. And he was feisty, you might say. And then Barbara Sleazer, she was feisty too, so two feisty people.
Absolutely.
But they get along very well.
But the Citizen of the Year Award, Albert Porter Citizen of the Year Award, can be given to someone for a lifetime of service or for a single incident of valor or
I think
special
we'll get
recognition.
to that tonight too, yes. Yeah, so that, and as each year goes by, the selectmen sort of meet, I don't want to say illegally, they meet, well, they meet, and they make a decision on who should receive that award. And, you know, the most recent was a surprise to me. I've only been out a month or two, and I didn't know those two gentlemen, and they're two favorites of mine, of course. So, but that was wonderful. So, anyway, that's the way it is, Pat. We make a decision on that. And one of the reasons was that I always said Albert always ran for the position. It didn't matter to him who he ran against. Whereas some people run against people, Albert ran for the job. So even when he lost to Harry Carey the next year, he ran against Don Francis. The following year, he ran against me, and then the following year he got back in. I mean, it's just he just kept running and running, and so he was. A selectman was what he wanted to be. So when he got out, though, his feelings were hurt, which was really kind of sad because he was older than I am now, and it was time. But you know, we thought we'd do this. I says, you know, if I do this for Albert, maybe he'll be. I think he was pleased. That we did.
But it was a commitment to service, as you're saying. It wasn't for any one particular issue. He wanted to serve the town.
Just wanted to be a selectman. Everybody called him Mayor of the North. And that's what he wanted to be, and he always carried the North by large numbers, and that's what we put him back in. But he was also the type of guy, we told him, you really shouldn't be chairman, Albert, because he said things, you know. People don't care. It's a regular say, but you know, it cost him the election. So he put his foot in his mouth quite often anyway, but
Some of us have a habit of doing it.
I don't know anyone in this room that would do that.
Oh, yeah.
There are those I used to say I was born with my tongue in the cheek and the foot in the mouth. That was a pretty difficult, no wonder it was cesarean.
But in any case, we're going to start today with 1997. Which was Kevin Ellis.
Kevin Ellis, right.
The award actually started in 1989, was dedicated to Albert Porter, and I'll just run through the list quickly. Donald Morrison in 1990, the Veterans of Operation Desert Shield in 1991, Charles Rochette in 1992, Barbara O'Brien in 1993, Shoshana Goshik 1994, Bernice Fountain 1995, and as we reported the earlier show, Harry Carey 1996, and that brought us up to 1997, Kevin Ellis.
And Kevin Ellis also, some of these will go across. In other words, they were also dedicated to the town report, so there'll be double. And Kevin Ellis was a double header. He was also, I believe, dedicated to the town report. Kevin is a Citizen Kane. He's the type of guy, he's not looking for trouble. He just wants to devote himself to the town of Raynham. And I'll say the thing that, so I won't forget it because I know the other two. he often ran those road races for the town.
Yes, for the Knights of Columbus, the
For
road
the
race. He
Knights of-
started that, I believe.
He
Actually,
did.
he did it for many, many years.
He did. And then, of course, Jimmy DuPont joined him, and John Donahue. But Kevin was the one who started that, and he did a wonderful job for many years running it, setting up the routes. And they used to take from the old KSC Hall and go across and down by the Legion. I think he even had, what is the name of that #1 runner in America, for United States? Naturally, I forget his name.
Yeah, he
Bill
ran-
Rogers.
Right.
Bill Rogers was in. Bill Rogers, it finished uphill and suddenly looked around. He couldn't believe it was over,
Yeah.
Because, he's used to running,
Marathons.
Yeah, and here we were at our little road race. But he was there. The gentleman who has his son in the wheelchair, he's been there. So Kevin ran that thing for many years. And what they say below the radar, Kevin stayed pretty much below the radar. I'll give the other one that is below the radar. He was chairman and non-chairman, mostly chairman, of the Cable
Right.
Commission. That led to where we are today in this studio.
Right.
Him and his team, you'd say, they would meet different places. They eventually met up on the housing for the elderly up there, and he would run the meeting, and people would call him up and yell at him.
They
When
still
people were
do.
complaining, when they complained, they found him. No one knew what Kevin was doing until they had a complaint about Verizon not coming in or something. Then they wanted to know why from Kevin Verizon wasn't coming in. Verizon's in the book. Give Verizon a call, find out why.
But he still serves on the Raycam, the Raynham Community, Access.
So he
channel.
got on both. He got on both.
And he was the former conservation commissioner too.
He was on that for several years, and he did an excellent job. He ran out of time to do all the things that
Right.
he's done over the period of years.
And then, of course, Raynham Pride Day.
Which is coming up in September.
Yes.
What is it, the 19th, I think?
16th, I believe, whatever
Well,
that Sunday is, somewhere around there.
Yeah,
Whatever
people,
the
check your
Sunday is, yeah,
calendar.
exactly.
It's in the Gazette every week. It gives the events, current events, and I think it gives that date, whenever that date is. But he runs that with his little golf cart, and he and Shirley, and they have, and he sells it. I mean, I've been in places. I'm getting out of here. He's pressuring people to put up displays, but they do it. Put up display. The only thing they charge for, there's one or two things. The Lions does it, and you get a free hot dog and a coffee. But one or two of them may charge something like, I don't know if the Balloon does. Does the Balloon charge?
I'm not sure about that. I
A
don't
couple,
think so.
and
but
he
there's
left a couple that are.
But it's a great family day at either no cost or low cost, depending.
There's about 20 out of 22 places are nothing.
Yeah.
Hand the florist
hand
gives
out
away free
flowers
roses. The senior citizens give out things, and then you can buy something like you might buy a map from the seniors or
right.
something like that. But no, it's wonderful. Kathy and I go, and also, by the way, they respectfully request that you bring some food stuffs or something
can
to
or
pay.
something,
Yeah,
right.
so we stop off. We see Jerry Smallhoover and stop off at the vehicle and give the food, and then you go around the 20-some things and you pick up different samples of rulers and pencils and cards.
And sometimes they have demonstrations, whether it's a gymnastic
I
demonstration.
think your brother
Karate demonstration.
does the karate demonstration.
Sometimes there's been a, police dog, canine does a demonstration.
Once in a while they do the fire thing.
The safe house is there
yeah,
from the fire
yeah.
department. So it's a great family event.
And people, they say people don't find out. People say, they didn't call me. People know when Kevin's doing his, and Shirley are doing the Raynham Pride Day because word of mouth.
Absolutely.
And, so he's just, you could, there's nothing in the town you couldn't name for Kevin that wouldn't be proper. He's done a wonderful job over the years, and he was the Citizen of the Year. Next to is someone who people may not know at this time, Stephen Friedman. Stephen Friedman was the first guy, what was that, 1998? He was the first guy to walk around with a computer.
Really? He
People
was on the
didn't-
Finance Committee.
He was the chairman of the Finance Committee, and he was on the Finance Committee. And it's funny how it worked because he was controversial, and the reason he fit so well on the Finance Committee was that he was feisty. I mean, he would dig right into those numbers. And that's what you need on the finance committee. By the way, there's an opening for those people, please. One of the wonderful committees to be on. And Tommy Gallagher changed jobs, as I hear, and resigned, which is a real loss. Second time we've lost Tommy. Try to get him back again. But Friedman was an accountant for somebody, I believe, and he has a little computer, you know, we all, so, oh, look at the guy. Look, he's got a little box. He's punching those numbers in those little boxes, you know. But he was appointed by us, and I'm going to say, this is a little side story. The three of us were there, the selectmen, Bobby Cadesi, myself, I'm not sure who the third one was. Maybe it was Jimmy DuPont, I'm not sure. And I was talking Donnie Francis into going back. But they're not sure they wanted Donnie because they didn't know if it would be a platform for him to run for selectman again. And I said to them, Donnie's not running for that. And then the other one was Bobby Cadet. I wanted Donnie. Bobby wanted a little-known man in the town of Raynham at the time, and now everybody knows his name, Gordon Luciano.
Oh, okay.
And I said, I'll tell you what, Bobby, I will guarantee you that Donnie Francis won't run for selectman if you guarantee me that Gordon Luciano won't run for selectman. Well, he won't. Oh, okay, all right. Then we had the third name for Marie, and that was Steve Friedman. And we were hesitant. You know, but imagine three people applying at the same time, three openings coming at the same time. And we were kind of hesitant about Steve because he was so controversial. I think he ran for school committee and got like 2 votes, you know, his and his wife. So it was no, I said, no, he did very well. But I believe he lost.
He did serve at one point. I think he may have lost in his re-election bid or had to run again.
For school?
At one point he did serve on the school committee when it was just the Raynham School Committee.
Right. But you wouldn't meet a nicer guy, except he did walk around with a little box. We did notice that. And come to find out, he was a genius with numbers. Oh, could he hit those keys and he knew just what he was talking about. What a find. And suddenly there we were, you know, Gordon, Donnie, and then first Steve Friedman. And 3 of them run. Obviously, they were 3 as good a members as we've ever had in the history of the town. Gordon did run for selectman the next year, but that was a different story. So anyway, that was funny. But Friedman got the award, and he passed untimely, very young. As a matter of fact, his daughter, I believe it was one daughter, could have been twins, but I believe it was one anyway, was a gymnast. She was state ranked.
Yes.
Now we are with the you know, with the Olympics coming along and our girls doing so well on the gymnastic, and his daughter or daughters were state ranked as doing the beams and all. That's very difficult.
Yeah,
you know.
definitely.
So people don't know Stephen, but they should know Stephen. He was quite a guy. Did you know Stephen?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I may have been reporter covering the school committee when he served on it at one point.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. We do catch some of your old articles. I got them. They're coming back to haunt you. I'll bring them on. Someday I'll come on the show and just do Pat's articles. I
wrote
talked
a
with
few.
Sue Weinstein, and Rebecca called me the other day. What'd she call me on? I forget what it was. But
From the Raynham call?
From the Raynham call, Rebecca, yeah. And she said, oh, it's on farms. They were doing an article on farms in the town, you know. And I told her that the Borden Colony used to be called the Poor Farm. And I says, well, you know, Susan Weinstein was in the room, and I've only known Sue for about 25 years, 30 years. And I said, Sue Weinstein used to work on the Poor Farm. She was on the Poor Farm, you know. And Rebecca saying, don't you say that, you know. And Sue's yelling, what did he say? What did he say? He was on the Poor Farm. Bob Gray.
Yes, 1999.
Did you know Bob?
I think I might have met him, but didn't really know him.
Yeah, he was a big giant of a man. He owned his own company. I think it was
Fire Alarms.
Fire Alarm Systems, something like that. And I shouldn't tell. I know people can keep a secret on this one, you know. He was on, and I and Joe Betancourt and Barbara O'Brien and a whole bunch of us were on this building committee for the St. Anne's.
Okay, for the parish center.
For the parish center. And I shouldn't say this, but I know you can keep a secret. And the bishop's not there anymore. But he got involved in a dispute on contracts that the bishop was dictating who it would be. And he took him on. And I said, any guy's going to take on a bishop, I got to find a job for him, you know? And so what did we put him on? We put him on the rent control board.
With Joe Betancourt.
With Joe Betancourt. Can you imagine those two guys? If you knew Bob, you didn't take Bob on. If he saw you coming, boy, you would. But he was a wonderful guy. And we gave him the Citizen of the Year award because he was such a dedicated person to anything he did. He gave it 100%. Just a and he passed, you know, and fairly young too. And his wife moved out of town recently, and we see her once in a while. Nice people. We got to find somebody you know now.
2000 was Steve and Sylvia.
Oh, you know Steve.
I did not know.
We should have brought in the book or something, I guess. That's right. We didn't bring in books this time.
Oh, that's right. I think Jimmy DuPont was the selectman at the time and recommended Stephen, if I remember correctly.
It is funny the way the world turns, you know. He and Jimmy DuPont, he had a truck. Jimmy didn't have a truck. He had a truck. And he and Jimmy DuPont used to meet like on a Saturday morning. And they'd go around to elderly people's house. And they'd pick up trash. And they'd take it to the landfill. And he'd do that for him. And Jimmy DuPont, of course, he considered him a very close friend. And I said to Jimmy was the chairman. Now, we mentioned this last time with Joe Betancourt. Jimmy DuPont was chairman of the of the K to 12 study committee to join the two groups together.
Right.
We were meeting, I think it was at the Merrill School, in a small room. The committee was all there, bunched like this. And who was invited to that? But a young man named Mark Pacheco. He had just been elected state senator.
Really?
And he came to the meeting, and he said, well, the Ed Reform Bill had just passed. And the Ed Reform Bill was anti-regionalization. Whereas now it's pro, you know. If you don't like something the state does,
right, the cycles.
just wait a few minutes. Don't be pushy. They will come around to the exact opposite of what they said. So anyway, he said to us, you know, guys, I'm not sure I can get you grandfathered in on this. And if I can, it maybe it'd be okay. But it's just in. It's brand new, and everybody's for the Ed Reform, and the Ed Reform isn't for regionalization. And so we're sitting there. We're all saying, well, if we can't get grandfathered, it's not going to be financially feasible to do this. So there's no sense in doing it. And we're all sitting there. We're all saying, well, if you can't, you can't. Honest to goodness, I mean, it was dead in the water. And, of course, I wasn't for it anyway, so I wasn't unhappy. I thought, wonderful. You know, all of a sudden you hear this voice in the background. I thought this was about the kids. It's Steve Sylvia.
Okay.
And we forgot he was on the committee. We said, what did you say? He said, we're not talking here about money. We're not talking here about Ed Reform. We're not talking about maybe you can, maybe you can't. This is for the kids. Go ahead and give it a try. What do you got to lose? And so Pacheco said, oh, okay, if you want me to give it a try. And he got us grandfather.
Right, yeah.
And that's why people, I said, I know that everybody thinks Steve Friedman got this because he takes the trash Saturday with Jimmy DuPont. That wasn't my vote.
Really?
And and he didn't vote the way I wanted him to vote. But he was a Citizen Kane.
Right.
He was there speaking why he was on that committee, and he was the turning thing to get that thing going. And people probably don't even. Steve walks around. His brother's a janitor over at BR now.
Okay.
You know, he's about 6'8". I said when he was in the 5th grade, he was only 6'2". You know, and Steve's mother is with the library.
I do know his mom.
Father was is a janitor at the library, and also until very recently, in the last month or so, he was the dog officer. So the family's involved, very much involved, and dedicated. and just wonderful people.
Excellent.
And
So that
there's
was
Steve
Stephen Sylvia in 2000.
Let's see who else you don't know.
Arthur Pillsbury. I mean, there's no one that doesn't know Arthur Pillsbury. 2001.
Yeah. Arthur Pillsbury, of course, was in the hospital, and he was in such bad shape that when I went to visit him, I walked right by him in the hall.
Really?
I went into his room. I said, "Where's Mr. Pillsbury?" They said, "He's out in the hall." I said, "Out in the hall? I just went by a gentleman out in the hall." They said, "That's him."
Oh, wow.
Oh, I said, "Oh my goodness." And when I look back on the career that he had, Arthur, of course, he and I were opponents in the first race that I ran. And we had, matter of fact, our recall had Phyllis Siren, who was Hank Ellis's father-in-law, since passed, and the other one was Peter Gay, who recently passed, legendary. He was the attorney for Arthur. Yeah, yeah. And it was a recount because it was 21 votes. And Arthur and I, and then later on, he was a candidate to be the town treasurer, and I voted for him because he was an excellent accountant. I knew he was. He was a great guy. And he became a very close friend of mine, very close. And I was with him in the latter time when his wife was very ill. And he and his wife died within a matter of 4 to 6 months from each other. And he was down.
He was a local businessman.
He was an insurance agent for Prudential. And he did that for many years. He was a veteran, and he was in the airplane. He was like the engine. Well, you took off and landed with Arthur. He was the guy. What do they call that? Engineer, I guess, something like that. I said to him, "Did you ever have close call?" "Oh, they're firing stuff at us all the time." I said, "Did you ever get hit?" He said, "I had a piece of metal that came up my pants and came out my pants and didn't hit me." I said, "Well, that's loose clothing anyway, you know." And so he was a hero in the war. He was a wonderful selectman. He was also one of the instigators to bring the sewer pipe up Route 44. He worked together with the water district, with Ed Murby. He was active in just about everything, and just a man of all seasons. He was in that category with Harry Carey and with Gordon Luciano. Those people who are in those different boards and all that, and like Al Porter was at that time and all that. So Arthur Pillsbury was one of the giants. When I say, I like to say from 1950 on till 2000, the fathers of the country, in a sense, like they say for the Revolution, but for the town of Raynham, we entered into the new world, if you will. When I got elected in '73, I think our population was 6,000 something. So from 1950 on up, that's when came in Walter O'Brien and Eddie Murby and Arthur Pillsbury and Harry Carey and the finance committee was all Al Lounsbury. Al Lounsbury, he's over there on the dedication. And I just want to say this, though. It's all timing. Al Lounsbury was an engineer for the Department of Public Works. 50 years ago, when 24 first opened, he was an engineer, and he said at the time, those exits aren't right. They're not built proper. They're not built to the future. And there was Route 24 built for 2 lanes. Now suddenly they're saying, "Oh, gee, what's wrong with Route 24? Al Lounsbury told you 50 years ago for openings. It's the exit and all." And so, wow, 5 minutes, Pat. We didn't.
That must be wrong, Don.
I think so. It's a misprint. That's a misprint.
Okay, so
But
that was
anyway.
Arthur Pillsbury in 2001. Maybe we can get one more in 2002.
Oh, yeah.
Barbara Gallagher.
I've got to get Barbara on here now.
Oh,
Since then,
yes.
Tommy's resigned, but Chris Gallagher's the sewer commissioner. He's on the planning board. He's an engineer locally. He's the one who reorganized for the town the Conservation Commission for us. And Tommy is just one of the brightest people that the town's ever had, and we've had him 2 times on the finance committee. And he's 2 sisters who are teachers, one in BR and one in Taunton, I believe. And Barbara, I said to her, "How come you got so many kids that are what's going on
They're all
here?"
so talented.
But Barbara was individual, I believe, who replaced Arthur Pillsbury
As
as
town
the
clerk.
treasurer.
Yeah,
As the
town treasurer.
treasurer.
Right,
Yeah, she
tax
was
collector.
tax collector.
Tax collector.
Yeah,
Okay.
Arthur was the tax collector. And Barbara, I believe, replaced him. And she was many years of dedicated service. But she's always been, she was on every study committee there was. She and Barbara Sleezer, Barbara Gallagher, Barbara Sleezer, were the main forces behind the town hall where it is now.
Right.
They were determined. And there were people with all sorts of degrees saying, we should tear it down and build it. Oh, well, you had to see Barbara's on that. So Barbara
Well, the
Gallagher.
interesting thing, too, Don, is that you would ordinarily think that a tax collector wouldn't be a very, very popular person in town. But every year, election year, on the
Yeah.
ballot, when Barbara was there, if she didn't top the ballot, she came very close.
That's right. Either Helen Lounsbury or Barbara Gallagher, depending on which one, would beat me every time
Yeah.
to get more
Well,
votes
you
than
always
I got.
number two. So.
I try hard, but I couldn't beat them. And yes, Barbara was very popular for someone who did that. As a matter of fact, we always try to give her a heads up as to when the priest was going to talk about the tax collectors, because they always, be sitting there wrung in their seat when they're talking about the tax collector. But Barbara is still about, by the way. Don't think she isn't.
Oh, yes.
Now I believe she's on the Housing Authority.
I think so. And she also gets very involved in all of our school activities.
Anything that goes on, you look up and there's Barbara sitting there. She's on top of that.
Absolutely.
So
Let's
she-
do one more.
And
2003, Martin Newfield.
well, there's ones that brings the tears to the town. And now, don't you know? I'm biased, of course, and first for Marty, who was one of the finest men ever to step into Raynham. Also one of the finest people ever to step into the city of Taunton.
Yeah, he served in Taunton for many,
He was
many
planning
years.
board, and
Yeah.
he was active in Taunton, and I'm sure he was active with the chamber. He was active with Businessmen's Association, training young. My son-in-law went to him for business advice. There was seniors who were in business who met,
Right.
had an insurance agency up on Route 44. I used to say Marty and Paul Newfield. Paul's down in Florida. Got to get him on sometime when he comes up here. Those two gentlemen, Route 44, they basically ran Route 44. They had the boatyard down near where P. Burke Fountain is now. Marty had the insurance agent where the sewing machine place is now, and the dentist opposite the L, whatever that place is for the hardware stuff. And then they also had Cogene's. They had
Cogene
Cogene
Plaza, right.
They also had, and Paul had the, let me think of it now, Slips Marina, which is owned by
Really?
the Pillsbury boy. Now,
He started that.
that's Arthur's son. Arthur raised no fools. They were all, the apple didn't fall far from the tree. He negotiated with the Ford dealership, and they said they've never, they're guys who negotiate for a living, but anyway, he sold them that location for a tidy sum, let's say. And now he's down right off of Hill Street?
Church Street.
Church Street. I'm not sure which street he's off, but then he was right in back of the car dealership, whichever one that is, and so that's where he is. And so, anyway, we say
But
Marty
Marty served
Newf-
many years on the Board of Appeals in Raynham.
Board of
and-
Appeals, Planning Board. He was on the Planning Board.
and a number of other committees, study committees.
You look up and you
so
see him,
forth.
and he was a legendary official. I used to say, Marty used to kind of walk like I do, when you get older, kind of a little shuffle a little bit. Then you'd see him with his uniform and his whistle, and some kid would break through running the 100-yard dash in 10 seconds, and Marty'd be right next to him, making sure he's inbounds. So we have 1 minute to go,
We have
Pat.
1 minute to go,
Shall
Jim.
we sing that song? Because Michael
We
will not.
need to.
Yeah,
We're going to get new lyrics for that song and have our
You're
own
gonna
theme
do 'em,
song. We
and
keep
then either
saying
you,
that,
I, or
but
Molly
one of
will
these
sing
days
that.
we're going to do that exactly.
Yeah, we'll do that together someday. Okay, we're down to Marty. We'll knock it off at
Should
Marty.
we stop there? Okay.
Mark Sanderson, you want to try to do him quick?
Okay.
Mark
Mark
Sanderson,
Sanderson
very
was
quick.
2004.
Do you remember Mark?
Yeah, I do remember Mark. He was on the school committee.
He was on the study committee with Jimmy DuPont and I. And
Okay.
Mark and I used to do a road show. We'd go around to Whitman Hanson to the different schools, and we both disagreed adamantly, but we did it in good spirit. And he was just a very dedicated, Mark Sanderson was a dedicated. So, and that we'll
And I
say.
guess we're going to stop there, and we have a few more to do.
We
but
do.
we will be back with our next Good Old Days.
I thank you very much
Excellent.
for
Thank you
the
very much.
for the time.
And
for
we
the
want to
people.
thank you also for being with us. and we'll see you here on our next episode of The Good Old Days.
Da-da-da-da-da-da. That's all. See, we're going to end early, so we're going to see it. The last time, they cut me off because I was trying to get a picture for Joe Betancourt.